So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the different areas of the controller. So you have your on and off at the top, your emergency stop if anything looks like it's going wrong. You have your handle jog, but this will actually, a lot of times you can turn on the kind of handle feed or handle spindle to modify those values. You can also use it to scroll up and down with the handle scroll button. You have your cycle start and feed hold, so this will start the automatic movement. This will hold the movement, it won't shut off the spindle. If you have any errors or alarms, you hit the reset button. When you fire it up, you'll hit the power up button, which will home everything. So this button does basically the same thing as home G28 and the 0 return. And then you have down here, you have your F1, F2, F3, F4. What you'll use those for a lot is you'll see a lot of times they'll be next to something and there'll be a shorthand cut. You have your tool offset measure. So what this will do is this will, when you're touching off, this will pull in the current value and set that as the length of tool. Next tool will move up and down when you're selecting tools. Tool release actually does nothing on these machines. You have to hit this button over here so that they put it right next to it so you don't forget. And then your part 0 set will, whatever G54 or working coordinate system you have, it'll help you set the 0 value when you're touching off. You have some stuff that's blocked out for us. Those are for more advanced machines. You have selecting your X, Y, and Z movements here. Once we go over to the right, this block will be what you want to display, right? So you can display your position. So I was already in the program. So we can see the kind of active codes that we have. And then we can come into position. I'll show you all the positions. You come up into the top different tabs, and you can select to only look at one of the positions. So you have all. So usually G54 is the one that you were usually calling out for our coordinate system. Distance to go is useful to see how much further it has to go in its current block of code. And then you have the machine and then the operator, which our machine we leave as the same. You have your offsets tab, which this is the tool lengths that you'll use. You can also put in, wear and sort of things if you're doing more advanced stuff. So I'm going to come up to the work. Here you can see where we selected the G54, and that's where we're putting our X and Y axes for our code. So, and you can go left and right for these. You have your current commands, so you can go up to the top here. You can flip through, see the different commands that are available. You can hit alarms, no active alarms right now. You can go through the history. Diagnostics, that's more for a technician, but you can tell what our air pressure is, line voltage, all this stuff. You won't need to go into the settings, and the help can be useful. You can come in here and look for the different things. So here you'll see an example of the F1, which will help you search for something. So first you'd actually want to input it though. So maybe I'll want to see what happens if I put in tool. Tool space, let's try like tool offset. I don't even know if this is going to pull up, but I'll hit F1. So brought in my F1 tool offset, and then so you can see there's setting work and tool offset. So you can come in here and hit enter and look at kind of some of the different help options. Right, so this will tell you about the part 0 set, which we'll do later. All right, next is these 6 buttons, which you might even go over twice in this video. So you have the edit button, which will let you edit the current code in memory. You have the memory, which will just pull up the code in memory. Right now you can search it. So let's say I want to go to my N400. So N400, and then I'll hit down, and then it'll search for it. So now I'll go to my N400. So down is kind of the natural search in the memory. You have the manual data input. So I can just come here and I can delete one of these because they're the same. And so the M03 is the spindle forward, spindle speed of 300 RPM. You have the handle jog, which will just turn on the jogging of the handle. You use these 4 buttons to the right of it to set what increment every click is here. So this is 10 thousandths, 100 thousandths, 100th, and a 10th. So this is kind of on the fast end. This is a little bit on the slow. So I usually toggle between these two. You have the 0 return, which will return to 0. You can either select all the axes to return, or you can select the single axes. So let's try closing the door before it does any movements, right? Oh, maybe it's Z. Maybe it might be this Z. Yeah. All right. Sometimes I forget which Z it takes. So it's Z and then single, right? Or if you want to do all. It'll go to the 0 for all of them. So we go back to the handle jog. Let's go on X. Go a little bit faster. Or we can come in and so next, not 0 return, we're into the list program. So the list program button, right now, left and right will go in and out of the directory. So there's nothing in the 9000 directory. That's in the Baja directory. You can see you can check mark things in this one. So the enter will check mark things. So if you want to check mark and then hit F2 and copy, it'll do that. Oddly enough, if you hit F2 without checking it, it'll also work. So you can either, but if you want to do multiple things, then that'll work. Then you can do multiple checks. Again, you can search the user data, right? You don't want to modify, and USB is all the stuff in our USB. Next, we have our number pad with our enter and cancel, which are used a lot. Next, you have the alpha, kind of this alpha numeric pad. I guess together these are probably alphanumeric, but so these are all of our letters. This will help you like go to the end or all the way up, and page down will jump in pages of your code over here. So for example, if I go to my memory and I want to go all the way to the top, I hit home, or all the way to the end, or if I just want to go 1 page up at a time. So that'll help you jump through your code quickly. Bottom left is while you're running the machine typically. So you have so right when you start right, as you'll see later, is I'll turn on the 5% rapid. Just so when we start going slow, I can avoid a crash easily, because this thing really moves at 100% rapid. You have your spindle, forward, stop, reverse. You have your spindle percentages. Usually if you notice something kind of not sounding right, that's when you control the spindles. And then you have your feed rates. So typically I'll start my feed rates also slow, and then I'll slowly bump up my feed rates. And then we have kind of selecting our different jog modes in these directions. All right, so that kind of finishes going over different things you can do with the controller. All right, so hello everyone. It's Chris Bachman. I got Sergio here filming with me. We're gonna put together a little video on how to run some G code that we've made in Mastercam on these Haas mini mills. So first, just to introduce you to the machine. So you have the control in the front. You have the door that'll slide open and close. So this will actually lock when it's running. And it can actually sense, so you can see the door open is open right now, so it'll even show it to you. Inside, there is the spindle. You'll have your vise, right? So you're still going to need to indicate that in like you would any other vise. And then you'll have your tools over to the side. All right, so let's start walking you through the process when you walk up to the machine, right? So same stuff. You want to make sure it's clean, make sure your parallels are flat, just not sitting on any chip. When you walk the machine, this is going to be black, and you're just going to hit the power on, just push it all the way down just for a split second, let go. I already did it, so it's going to take a few moments to fire up. And you're going to see this screen here, and it's going to ask you to cycle the door. So that basically means open, close the door, which I had already done previously. So do green check. Green check will be to rotate this clockwise to turn off the emergency stop, green check. and then it's going to ask you to press the power up button, which will be right up here next to the reset button. So once you hit the power up, it's going to home the 3 different axes. So it'll do X, Y, and Z. Of course, once the door closed first, let's pull out this truck. Close the door. So this is just figuring out where it's at in space at this point. So it's going to go until it hits its limit switches on the side. It's going to switch into tool 1 at this point. Alright, so now we've got the power up button. We're going to be able to open the door, and we're going to be able to move it around manually. So at this point, we're going to want to move the vise up in front of us here. So we can come onto this control unit, and it has some different areas. So the first areas that we're going to work with quite a bit will be these 6 buttons right here. So you have the edit button, which allows you to edit your code. You have memory, which is going to look into memory. Then you're going to have manual data input, so MDI. I think I accidentally pushed a little hard on that, so I'm just cancel. So then you have your handle jog, which will allow us to move around the different axes. You have your 0 return, which this will return to the home position, and you can either choose single axes, all axes before you 0 return. You also have the home G28, which will do a similar thing. And then you have the list program, which will go into the list of programs that you can potentially select from in memory. So the difference between this memory goes to the current program you have loaded in memory, which is right here, versus this will go into a list of all the programs. Alright, so I'm going to start to move the machine around. Put my safety vest on. So we said we wanted to handle jog it. So we're going to hit handle jog. And then you have the different increments at which you want to handle jog. You can do 1/10,000th, 1,000th, 100th, or a 10th. So we'll go to the 0.01 handle jog. And then we'll do in the X direction. So it'll highlight it in yellow. Right? And so, so what we're going to start doing is we're going to start moving negative and X, and we'll move our table over. And then we can go in Y, and we're going to want to go positive and Y. And that's as far as it'll let us go at this point. Alright, so at this point what we're going to do is we're going to load our material in. Alright, so same as any other mill. Put my 2 parallels. Get it centered in here. Got my dead blow hammer. Got the shot in it. Tap that down, pull this out. Alright, so we have our piece in at this point. Next up we'll want to load in our G code. So the .nc file. So on the side of this controller, what we'll have is USB port. We'll have the unlock key for inputting and outputting, and the unlock key for changing any of the parameters, right? So we're gonna have both these unlocked. This one would be to, keep additional students from putting new programs on there. This one would be if you wanted more of like a technician to run it, and you didn't want to let them change anything about it, and then all you wanted them to do is be able to hit go. So we'll put our USB in. Alright, so at this point you're going to want to, before we go into this list program, we're going to want to start warming up the machine. So Alright, so the next thing you want to do is for 10 minutes warm up the spindle while we're loading in the program. So before we go over into the list programs, what we're going to do is go into the MDI, so the manual data input, and we're going to write M03, and you'll see it'll come down here in the input, so when you write it comes here in the input, and the insert, we'll insert it to the left. So this semicolon is the end of block basically, which means it's the end of that line. So that's how G-code will take it in. So I'll hit, right now I'm going to hit insert, and it's going to do the M03, and then I can enter in the spindle speed, so S300, and then I can do insert. And so I didn't want it to insert there, right? So I should have been to the left slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and hit delete. So I'm going to go up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do S300 and then insert. Right? So so that'll get you your spindle speed moving. Alright, so we're back. So we got the M03, so we use the insert button, which put it in right after whatever is selected. The alter button will replace whatever you want to put in here. So if I want speed 299, and then I'll hit alter, it'll replace it, and then you have the delete. And the undo, you can undo up to 10 different commands. So I can go back and I can undo it. All right, so now that I have that running, I have the door closed. What I can do is I can hit the cycle start, and that'll just start to warm up the spindle for 10 minutes or so while we load in our program. It won't take that long. But all right, so what we're going to come and do is we're going to come into our list program now, and we're going to see there's 3 tabs at the top. So that's the way the kind of the Haas interface will usually work. So right now we're here, so we can go up and down, select these 2 files to this 09000 directory. So if you have this little right arrow, that'll go deeper into the directory. All right, so we're gonna, if we want to make a new directory, say for Baja, so we'll go into F3, make directory, hit enter, directory name, say we want it to be Baja, and then it'll always enter, and then it'll say you what button to hit. So exit will be undo. So we want to make this Baja directory at this point. So at this point we'll load. I'll show you how to load the file into there. So next, since we're in our main memory, we have our user data, which you don't want to modify. That comes from the company, and so it has information that the machine is going to use. And what we're going to do is go into our USB. So once you go into your USB, I programmed something just called circle. Just comes in and does a 1-inch circle, this NC file. So you can see the EMCAM. So those are your mastercam files, and then you have the .nc. You could run it from here, but the issue with potentially running it from here, if someone came by and grabbed your USB out while it was running, it would stop. So what I like to do is I'll like to copy this into memory. So if you look on the right, this will have all of your options here. So instead of loading it, which would be select program, which would be to run it, basically what we would want to do now is copy it. So you have these shortcuts, F1, 2, F3, F4, kind of like on a computer. So F2 is the copy, and it's going to ask you where do you want to copy it to. So we're going to want to copy it to memory, and then we're going to go down to Baja, and we're going to copy it to the Baja folder. And if we want to copy it, we hit enter. If we want to exit, we hit cancel. So we want to copy it, so we're going to hit enter. So now we have the file loaded in, and we can pull out that USB and don't have to worry about it. So we scroll all the way up. So we're going to go to USB, back to memory, go down to Baja, click right. So now that there's something in it, you can click right and you can enter down inside of it, and we can see the circle. So right now we have the list of all the programs, and now we're going to select the program that we want. And that's going to load that into our memory. So we're going to select the circle program, and now it automatically goes into the memory tab, which is here, and it's going to load it in there. And what you're going to see is that you're going to have your program number, which here we just have 6 zeros, right? So you can label that anything you want, and that number is up here as well. And then you're going to have these parentheses, which are just information for you. It's just comment. It's not actually going to run the machine. And then you're going to have this starting with 100, steps of 10, these different codes. So the first thing I see is we're going to start with tool 1, and then we can see that it's using a G54. So that's our working coordinate system, and so we're going to want to do all of our tool offsets with a G54. Some other things that we'll pay attention to as you go are these Z values, and so those will be what we want to keep an eye on at this point. So now that our program is loaded up, the next step would be to load in our tools, set our X and Y 0 values, and then set our tool heights. All right, so at this point now, I'm going to go back into our manual data input, so we can do things that we want, and I'm going to hit handle jog, so that we can jog things around if we need to do the different touch-offs. Okay. Next, I'm going to stop the spindle, and then what I want to do is I'm going to first insert my tools. So if you look inside the memory, you should have different tools, and I only have one tool for this, but usually you'll watch the video beforehand, you'll see how to number the tools in a row, and you're going to put those in the right slot. So right now I have a 1/2 inch flat end mill in my tool one position. So what I'm gonna do next is right now it's already in tool 1, but let's say it's not in tool 1. Let's say it was in tool 2, so I'll do T2 automatic tool change forward. This is just to give you an example if it was in 2. So if it was in 2, you could either hit T1 automatic tool change forward, or you could just do automatic tool change reverse. So just go back a tool. Do you want to have one that goes in close? Or you can kind of see it. So on our machines, the newer ones, they have a button inside of here. It used to be that you'd have to, I can't even remember where the button is. There's a tool release. You used to have to hit tool release here to release it, but now it's all inside here, which is nice because it reminds you to grab the tool, not just hit tool release and fire it down into the bottom of this. So you hold on to it because it can really pop. It's been in there a while. Hold on to it good. Then you bring out your tool, and you replace it with the tool that you want in the tool 1 position. So what I want is this 1/2 inch 2 flute flat end mill. So you'll see that there's 2 cutaways here for these 2 pieces of material to grab onto. You remember the name, Sergio? Tangs? Tongues?
They're called dogs, no?
Dogs, yeah, dogs, good. You can put a little bit of oil on this. You don't want very much, but you can put just a little bit of oil for it to help to come out. You really don't want any chips along here. Basically what it's going to do is come down and grab this pull stud and pull it up inside of it, and you just want to make sure these line up. So I'm going to come, bring it in. And I want to make sure it's sucked in. So let's do it again. If it got stuck like that, that's obviously not going to work. Your dog is not in the right line, right? So you want to basically bring it around. You want to get it so that the dog is right in the groove. You know the tool's in the right spot at this point. Okay, so I have my tool 1. Next, I'm going to use, some people will use a piece of paper on the side of a center drill. Sometimes you might indicate your 0 in from a feature on your part. So you might, want something to hold a dial indicator, but I'm just going to use an edge finder, and I put the 0 on my part on the front left. A lot of people would maybe use the back surface just because it's got the fixed jaw on it, but a lot of times at Cal Relay we're using this front left just because it's easy to indicate off of. So I'm going to put this in tool 2. So I'm going to do this automatic tool change forward. So in tool 1 I want tool 2. Oh, door's open. So if something doesn't happen, you can look down here, give you a little reminder. So automatic tool change forward. So preferably don't leave your tools with this much chip in it, but it's all right. So first, use 2 hands. Take out the old tool, and we're gonna put in the new one. So, and you'll notice there's a couple different, so these are tapers are called Cat 40 tapers. A lot of our Bridgeport machines use the R8. A lot of our lathes use the 5C. So this is a Cat 40, and so that describes this shape. And then you'll see there's we have these we have this collet system. So when you use this collet system, inside the collet system, there's this threaded portion, and then there's the actual collet. So to put it in, you want to first put the collet portion inside the head, and then you want to slide this down in. All right, and then once you just have this not cross-threaded, hopefully, drop your end mill inside of here, and then hopefully your shop has made something that'll hold this all in place. Well, you can use the spanner wrench on it. And there's different sizes, so there's this kind of, you know, I don't know, roughly 1.25 inch face. There's this, you know, let's say roughly 1/2 inch collet face. And I like these collets better than your other option is there's ones with different sizes for set screws. So I would avoid using the set screws, one, because when you push on it, it's going to slightly move it off center, and 2, it's just not going to hold on to it that well. If you do, hopefully you have a flat on either your center drill or your end mill to be able to hold that well. Alright, so that was a couple of the different styles of Cat 40s, but we were putting in our edge finder so that we could touch off on our part. Alright, so slight film of oil just so it doesn't fire itself out too much, no chips on it. Line up the dogs, hold down the tool release and let go when it sucks up in. Alright, so now we have our edge finder so we can begin to touch off. So what you'll notice sometimes is this power save button. If you don't move around too much for a little bit, the power save will come on. So next I'm going to turn on the handle jog. Right? What we're going to do next is I'm going to bring it down around to this front left. So first I'm going to move in Y. It doesn't really matter if you hit Y negative or positive. But right now we're going to want to move in the negative Y direction. Down to about here. Then we're going to want to move in the positive X direction, so that's a positive counterclockwise. And then we're going to move down in the Z direction. Right? And so I'm going to touch off on this side of the part. Alright, so I'm gonna bring up the spindle speed to about 1,000 to do the touch off. You don't want to go more than, you know, probably 2,000 with the edge finder if you don't want to throw off the tip. So we're gonna go back to the manual data input. We can delete this. We can come up here and we can delete this S300. So what we're gonna do is S1000, and then we're gonna hit Alter, which will replace that with the S1000. All right, and then what we're gonna do now is we're going to hit the cycle start, get the spindle spinning up. All right, so at this point we're going to want to come and touch off the front of our block. So I'm going to go in the Y direction. Don't forget to hit the handle jog. So we're going to come here in the Y direction. Just, and I'm going to go into the 1,000ths handle jog. It's roughly the accuracy I want to get with this. And I'm going to keep stepping positive in Y until I see it offset right there. So at this point, we'll go into our different display options. So this one, what we're going to want to look at are our offsets. So we're already in the offsets tab, and we're going to want to look at our work offsets. And so at this one, make sure you're not changing the G52. We want to change this G54. So what I'm going to do is for the Y, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to part 0 set on this Y, and it's going to take in the current position and add that to the machine portion of it right here. So part 0 set, right? Well, I guess the machine's not going to change, but this is going to change your G54 back to 0. So we have our 0 here, so that looks good. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add 100,000s onto it, because we know we're actually 100,000s off. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight this this y-axis here, and we're going to hit 0.1, and then we're going to hit enter, and you can see that we're now at negative 0.1. So now we're at the center. You could move it over. You could move it over that bit and then re-zero it if you want, but so now we're going to come and we're going to zero our y. Sorry, zero our x. So I'm going to come in. This one's a little bit harder to see. Just touches. There, right there. Right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now select my x-axis. I'm going to do my part 0 set. Go back to my x-axis, do 0.1, and then I'm going to hit enter. You can see I'm actually negative that direction. So and right now I want to move more negative in x because I don't want to crash it. So whenever you're on your part, you got to be really careful to think about which direction is positive and negative. So I can feed hold, stop the spindle. We're just in this offsets, and we are setting these two offsets so that when we were at 0, 0, we were at the front left of our block. So if we wanted to handle jog Z in the positive direction, and we wanted to handle jog our X, so we want to go positive to 0. Close. And then in our Y, 0, do a little sanity check. Make sure we remember to move over. So that looks like I'm right at the front left. So that looks good to me. So I want to go back to, I'm at tool 2, so I want to go back to my tool 1. And so I've told my machine now where is my axis relative to my workpiece. And now I'm going to tell it how tall my tools are. At this point, I'm going to go automatic tool change reverse. Oh, see, one thing you'll notice is I was still in handle jog and I tried to do the automatic tool change. So automatic tool change reverse. Right now we're going to touch off, so you should have a little piece of paper available. We usually leave a little notebook here just for a little piece of paper. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to handle jog, and we're going to move in the X and Y direction, positive in both. And then we're going to move in Z. So if you want to, you can go to the 100,000s to get it in the ballpark. But be careful, and then go to the 100,000s. Now I'll put a piece of paper under here. I'm going to move it around slightly when it gets close. And when I feel it start to pinch, usually once I can no longer grab my paper, then what I'm going to, so now I'm in 1, I want to make sure I'm in my length geometry, and then I'm going to do my tool offset measure. It's okay if it says greater than setting 142. I'm gonna hit Y to tell it to enter. And so now what you really want to do is think, all right, do I want to go negative or positive in Z? So I always remember, all right, so I want to go back up, so I want to go positive. Well, I remember just to go up, mark your part. All right, so now our machine knows both where the part is in X and Y and in Z. So at this point, you should be pretty good to run your code. So if you remember, our code was down here in memory. I like to show the position. If you want, you can go to all, and so you can see your G54, your distance to go, and then your machine positions. What we're gonna do at this point is, what I like to do is bring the rapids down to 5%, and I like to bring my not my spindle speed, bring my feed rate down just a little bit to start, and that way we can make sure we're not gonna have any crashes at this point. All right, so right now you can see in our G54 we're at negative 2.06. We should see that change as we see this as this tool one will come in. So let's at this point we'll hit cycle start. If you want to go a little bit slower, you can put in single block mode, and then it's just going to do a line at a time. So running, so you see how it's just going to do a line at a time basically. So you have your G20. So if you ever want to, you can come down here and say, oh, what was G20 again? So this is telling, oh, we're in the inch system at this point, right? Then we have the G0, which is a rapid movement. And then you'll have a bunch of G1s, which will be linear movements. And then you'll see a lot of G2s and G3s, because those are circular movements, G2 being clockwise, G3 being counterclockwise. And then, so I'm going to get out of this single block running, and then we're just going to hit cycle. So you want to keep a finger on the feed hold, and you want to be watching what's happening the whole time. I'm going to turn the coolant off just so it's easier to see, and so I don't get Sergio's camera all wet. So you see the Z all of a sudden changed now that we went through the tool one, and it brought in our G54. And it'll bring in the tool offsets. I forgot which G is the tool offsets. Maybe G43.
Do you still have that insert?
Yeah, tool length compensation, G43. So after you bring in your tool, it goes to the G43, and that'll bring in your tool length offset for you. All right, so I basically just programmed this to come in and do a one inch circle, and so you're going to see it's going to come down to about 100 thousandths in a linear movement from here. And so I'm gonna hit go at this point. So you can see the spindle feed. You can see my plunge feed rate was 1 inch per minute. So my active feed is 0.1. So if I'm a little bit happy now, maybe I'll up my feed rate. And I can see my distance to go. It's got to go down 0.2, so that seems reasonable. So I'm gonna maybe bring it up a little bit. But if it said my distance to go was, -3, I think something's wrong at this point. So we're gonna see it's gonna start entering at 0, so we want to watch it there. Starting to do the movement. So right now I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. I don't want it just sitting there and rubbing. Actually start to cut a little better when it has some chip it can grab. So you can see I'm 90 thou deep doing my first circle. If I was smart, I would have in Mastercam select to keep the tool down, you see what happens? It's basically going to come back up 0.2 and then come back down when it comes to do the finish pass. I don't know why this machine always looks like it's spinning counterclockwise to me. Something with the refresh rate of my eyes. Alright, so now I'm going to do my finish pass, 0.1 down. We can touch off again. We can see how good my my touch off method is. See if we should include the 3/1000 thickness of the piece of paper or not when you touch off. My general assumption is to kind of pinch it, you got to kind of squish the 3 thou. So I think I'm kind of at the top. So there it goes, G0 rapid movement up. Oh, one more pass. It's gonna come down and do the walls at this point, I think. So you can see my active feed, 6 inches per minute. It off and bring it up. So of course you could do that one a lot deeper. You want to use some coolant, of course. Always leave the coolant on when you're actually doing it. So now it's going to wrap it all the way to the X0, X0 or X0, Y0, and we're good. It's done. All right, so now we can check out our work.